Hey, welcome back to our bulk market update here. We'll start off with Loadboard postings. This little red dot over here is this week's postings, up a little bit from last year, 14% from last week. So we're seeing a couple of weeks here in a row trending up. So I think we'll be able to see a pretty good jump here at the first of the year. We'll move on here to loads by origin trend. We saw the West, it had a huge jump, Central as well, and East, just a little bit of a decrease there in the South. This next slide will show a little bit more of that. Washington saw a little bit of a decrease in origins. Wisconsin saw a jump. Canada actually saw a pretty big jump. That's not a whole ton of loads, but there's a little bit more freight moving. I didn't see hardly any of it moving cross border unless it was from the Toronto area. Pennsylvania picked back up, as you can see on both ends, origin and destination. A lot of that coming from the Great Lakes regions. So I think there's might be a little bit of that coming across the Great Lakes from Canada. People stockpiling that stuff before the tariffs are enacted and causing a little bit more costs there. Virginia, a ton of grain coming in to Virginia, as well as some raw materials. Most of that's coming from the Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan area. So probably the same story as Pennsylvania. A lot of stuff coming across the border and being used in those states, or at least stockpiled. Right now, it looks like it's pretty hard to get out of the Southeast. Not a lot of loads coming out of those states at the moment. Not a whole ton of the manufacturing's down there or storage of products. So if you're in those states and you want to keep your trucking company or drivers busy, if they can stay out a little bit and stay in the Midwest, you can definitely see a big jump right there in the central United States, the breadbasket of America as well. There on the West Coast, I was looking this morning, quite a bit of those are organic grain loads coming back east. So if you're in those areas, the organic stuff usually pays a little bit better, plus the longer haul. You could probably make some pretty good money on that kind of stuff coming back east. Keep going here. We saw a little bit of a increase in fuel prices. For everything I've been seeing, we're probably going to stay steady in that mid threes for the rest of the year there. A lot of speculation on Trump's policies, whether that be open drilling, what the U.S. production is going to look like, sanctions on Russia causing lack of supply throughout the country or throughout the world, causing some prices increase. OPEC dropping demand or dropping supply a little bit. We could see some increase on prices, or if very little, just stay the same. Rocky Mountains is the only place in the United States that saw a little bit of a decrease from last week on fuel prices. So we'll keep an eye on that kind of stuff coming into the future. And I brought up the map here of the road conditions. So we're seeing another big bunch of lake effect snow. So those places, Virginia, Pennsylvania, that we've been saying have been getting a lot of loads from across the border by ship. We could see some slow delays there, as well as maybe an uptick in prices on those loads, just because guys that are not wanting to get out in the snow deal with the cold as well. And it's supposed to be bitter cold through the central United States this week. So keep that in mind when you're running loads. Keep your coat and gloves in the truck there. A big thing in the news right now is the California wildfires. There are a couple of ports in that area. What I read today, there's not a whole lot of effect on that at the moment, but at any moment, those winds could shift and change, closing down some roads that are some major traffic ways from the ports into the United States, blocking a little bit of that. Maybe the biggest thing causing delays, not so much closing those off as well. A little more on fuel prices. This is the 2025 forecast from Gas Buddy here. Uh, I think they said 353 or so about average for the year. Um, Not a whole lot of dropping from the year before this year, or even expected in the next year, just because the policies of starting drilling again, getting the operations in place under the Trump administration will take a little bit to take effect to start producing, as well as the sanctions on Russia over the Ukraine war, and also the tariffs from Canada. A lot of oil coming across the border from Canada. So if those tariffs and sanctions go into effect, we're probably not going to see a huge decrease in fuel prices. Now, if we can get something done, more production, those tariffs don't go into effect, the Russia-Ukraine war stops, sanctions don't have to continue, we could see some big drastic changes in those. Everything that we hear on the load board, how the brokers are ruining the industry. We saw a big decrease in those broker authorities over this last year. Sadly, I don't think that's here to stay. I think come the new year, I think we're going to see that rebound a little bit and start following this trend line as well. So we may not be back up in the 28,000 authorities, but I definitely think we'll see 1,000 or 2,000 of those broker authorities opened up in net gain in the next year. That causes a lot of supply of brokers competing over prices for shippers. So that could drive prices down on rates a little bit more than we did see this year. They might have rebounded a little bit more. So grain rates, everything I've been seeing, people starting to move grain around. They want to have it in their hands or get it sold before the tariffs go enacted. So there's a little bit of stockpiling of that coming here at the right before his inauguration. As same with fertilizer, I'd say that's probably what's happening here. I wanted to show a map of where most of the nitrogen and phosphorus plants and mines, where most of these fertilizers are produced here. You can see Oklahoma, Louisiana, and then into Iowa and Illinois are some pretty big areas here, as you can see. So if you move those fertilizers, those are the places I would set up around. Or if you have a trucking company in those areas, I would definitely follow that link at the bottom. Check that out. Follow that link at the bottom and check that out, so you can maybe get in contact with those fertilizer companies. Keep your trucks running their stuff consistently. That stuff usually pays a little bit better than grain. Not quite as cyclical there on the demand. And then finally, we saw just a slight decrease in feed ingredient loads. Just not a whole lot of volatility there. So I'd say we won't see much of a change in that until later this month, coming into next month when it starts to warm up around the United States. If you have anything else, please let us know. And thank you for listening.